Hello everybody, welcome back to History with Spriggs. My name is Spriggs, and today we will be talking about the Roman colonization of Britain, Part 1. The Roman colonization of Britain. Part 1 will be from 55 BC to 180. Britain was known to the Greeks, Phoenicians, and Carthaginians, who traded with them in the 4th century BC for Cornish tin. Carthaginian explorer Himilco is said to have reached Britain in the 6th or 5th century BC. And when Pythias and Pythias might have reached Britain in the 4th century, and the first known Roman contact was in 55 BC when Julius Caesar took on two expeditions, one in 55 BC and the other in 54 BC. After his victory against the Gauls, he believed the British tribes were supporting the Gauls, and so he went north and took the coast of Kent, but was unable to push north anymore. And that was the first one. But this was less of an invasion and more of a punishment march. The second one had a much larger force, and Caesar invited Celtic tribes to give hostages in return for peace. So they did so, and so Caesar and his men returned to Gaul with no territorial gain. But he established clients also to negotiate with them with trade and other things. Augustus planned invasions in 34, 27, and 25 BC, but it never happened. Strabo wrote how the trade tax would earn Rome more revenue than a conquest ever would. Rome supported the two most powerful kingdoms in Britain, the Cativelini tribe, I hope I am saying this right, and the Archabates. This policy was followed until 39 or 40 AD, when Emperor Caligula received an exile Cativellian dynasty member, and Caligula planned to invade, but he forgot to tell his men, and the invasion never even left Gaul. And Caligula is known to be a sort of crazy emperor. And so, when Claudius successfully invaded in 43 AD, it was in aid of another fugitive British ruler, Verica of the Archabates. And so, an invasion force led by Aulus Plautius started in Kent and pushed more. It is not known how many legions or even where he landed in the first place. So it's sort of unknown where he was. And so they headed northwest, and they fought on the River Thames and the River Medway. And Plautius halted at the River Thames, which is, by the way, the river which London is on, and waited for and sent for Claudius, who reinforced them with men and other things, and brought artillery and war elephants. And they took the Cativellian capital, modern-day Colchester, which is also the first city in Britain found by the Romans, and and they took it and made peace with the neighboring tribes. After they took the south, they turned towards Wales. And in the first few decades of Romans in Britain, there were it was mainly military invasions and minor uprising with allied tribes. But Gaius Suetonius Paulinus massacred the Druids, who were basically priests to Druidism, which is the religion of the Celts, and he murdered them while he was campaigning north around northern Wales. And so, as he was campaigning in Mona, sort of in northern Wales, and so as he was campaigning in southeastern Britain, rose in revolt under Queen Boudica of the Icena, and Precitongus, who left half his kingdom, and she was a recent widow of the recently deceased King Precitongus of the Icena people, which were a Celtic tribe. And he left half his kingdom for the Roman emperors to rule, but also left half his kingdom to Boudica and to his two daughters. But then the Romans took all of it, which is kind of funny and a pretty European thing to do. And so in 60 AD, Boudica raised an army out of the Icena people and some neighboring tribes, and they destroyed the colony at Camulodunum, which is modern-day Colchester, and Paulinus then rode to London as fast as he could, but he concluded that it could not be defended, and so he abandoned it, which Boudica's army burned to the ground. And so he did the same with Verulamium, now St. Albans, and also London, at that time was called Londinium. And between these three cities, 70 and 80,000 people died in the three cities, which is a pretty good amount, especially because the Romans invaded in a different way. They didn't fully displace everyone and have direct rule. They basically went to the tribes, fought them, and said, well, now you're a Roman, and we claim this land. They actually never had a very strong grip over the land, but this area was probably the most settled and most claimed land in Britain. Paulinus regrouped his army in 60 or 67 AD, and it's hard with these things because it's just not known. In fact, the period after this time, they don't even know who the governor of Britannia, as the Romans called it, and little is known about some Roman things, and so it's hard to get the exact date and number. And they met at the Battle of Watling Street. Although outnumbered 20-1, the Romans won. Boudica, not wanting to be a prisoner, sort of a Celtic tradition that you won't be taken prisoner, and even a Celtic tradition was if you lost in battle, you would kill your whole family, because they were just gonna come and kill you. And so she drank poison and died, ending the Boudican revolt. During this time, Nero almost withdrew all forces in Britain, which would be devastating because around this time, it was about 50 so years before that they lost at the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, and they were losing their grip to the Germanic tribes. And this would be devastating to Rome. But they won, but there was further turmoil in 69 AD, or the year of the four emperors, as civil war raged in Rome. Weak governors couldn't control the legions and in Britain, and so they couldn't control the legions, and Venutius of the British seized his chance. The Romans previously defended Cartamandua against him, but this time they were unable to do so because they didn't have a very strong grip because during the Civil War, and he took Cartamandua, and Venutius basically took the whole north of Britain, which was really bad. But when Vespasian, Emperor Vespasian of Rome, finally ended the Civil War and took control, he took the north back, but he didn't stop there. He went into Scotland, and General Gnaeus Julius Agricola defeated the Caledonians, which were basically the furthest north tribe in the British Isle, all the way up in Scotland. And he defeated them at the Battle of Mons Screpius in 84 AD in northeastern Scotland. This was the peak of Roman territory in Britain, but by 87 AD, they withdrew from this area. And this made Agricola as he returned to Rome for a parade and received medals for defeating the Caledonians, he was deeply saddened by this, as he had took these lands and they basically gave them all back. And that was the peak. And that is also the end of the video. Thanks for watching and make sure to subscribe and like this video and share it with a friend. If they won't listen, share it with an enemy. And with that being said, Spriggs out.